Welcome to the channel, guys. My name is Jess. So information from the recent federal interest rate meeting has finally come out, and Bitcoin and the rest of the crypto asset market could be in for a really interesting year ahead. We're going to dive into the charts today to talk about the effects of the recent FOMC data on Bitcoin's price action and analyze future potential price action on both the high time frame and short time frame charts. As always, before we get into all that, make sure you guys smash that like button and subscribe to the channel to get regular Bitcoin analysis every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. If you're after even more content, be sure to check out my free Telegram channel, and if you're interested in my VIP channel, you can get more details over here. VIP gives you exclusive access to my personal trading setups with exact entry points, targets, and stop losses. So, for those of us in Australia, guys, we had the federal interest rate meeting at 4 a.m. last night on Thursday, and as expected, there was no rate change, right? The Fed held the rate steady at 4.25 to 5%. If we take a look at this article from Barron's, we can see here that sort of confirmation of that, and it follows a cumulative percentage point of rate cuts in the last three meetings at the end of 2024. So the meeting overall, well, the data itself, the FOMC data being the rate cuts, wasn't anything aside from what we expected. The market had already priced in a stagnation. And so if we take a look at Bitcoin, the overall short time frame price action was pretty unreactive. There was no distinctive moves. We saw a tiny bit of like a rally here at exactly 4 a.m., a little bit of a dip at 5 a.m., and then a rapid recovery. Now, the rapid recovery here on the short time frame, it still isn't really all that distinct. We didn't do anything that marks a high time frame bullish continuation, but it does tell us and hint at the market's reaction to the things that was said at the FOMC meeting following the data. So the overall stance that the Fed took at the meeting itself was overall pretty neutral to bullish. As we expect, the Fed is never really that expressive and, distinctive about what they plan on doing in the future. Of course, it's always sort of like that wait and see kind of thing. But what they did say was overall actually quite positive in terms of potential rate cuts in the future. So in terms of their goal, it's still very much the same. They're still aiming for 2% inflation target, and they're not going to change rates unless real progress on inflation is made, or they see distinctive weaknesses in the labor market, for example, a massive increase in jobless claims data, right? And if we take a look at what was also said in the meeting, though, we receive a little bit of confirmation that the inflation is actually moving towards the goal, which is actually quite different from what we heard last meeting in December, where we're actually being told that the entire narrative for 2025 was changing because inflation wasn't moving in the right direction, right? Inflation was going massively up, and they were really worried about the fact that that was going to increase into 2025 if they continued rate cuts. So the fact that in this stagnation and over the last couple of months, we've seen inflation move towards that 2% goal. And for example, last month's CPI data, or earlier this month's CPI data, was relatively bullish as well, suggesting that inflation is again moving in the right direction. Rate cuts are therefore overall still on the table. It's still up in the air. Of course, we don't know when that's going to happen, but it also tells us then that, potentially we wouldn't be completely delusional to expect further rate cuts throughout the year. If we take a look at FedWatch for the next meeting, which is just a little under a month away, about a month and a half away, we can see that already the probabilities here for seeing some sort of cut has increased massively from the prior probabilities for, just recently's FOMC meeting. We're at 23% as opposed to what was, I think, 2%, 2.3%, or it probably changed closer to the date, but a very, very low probability, right? So overall, we know that on the high time frame, we can expect some sort of bullish economic climate towards the end of 2025. Now, that's going to reflect in the price action. On the high time frame charts, until we know when to expect that distinctively bullish economic climate, it's quite likely then that Bitcoin is going to continue to chop within that sort of range over here. We're going to see continued consolidation until distinctive bullish price action. So in the video today, we're going to talk about what distinctive bullish price action will look like on the high time frame charts, what's going to signal that, as well as on the short time frame, our future potential price action. Before we get into the rest of the video, guys, let's hear a quick word from our sponsor, BetUnex. We can get 15% off all of your trading fees and up to $5,500 US in sign-up rewards when you create your free account using the link down in my description box. BitUnex is an emerging cryptocurrency exchange committed to providing you with a secure, convenient, and highly functional trading and investment platform. Available across all countries as a non-KYC exchange, get global access to over 150 trading pairs with minimal fees on both spot and futures contracts. Join today to get $5,500 US in sign-up rewards and get 15% off all of your trading fees by signing up using the link in my bio or by using the code 1GG3 when you create your account. So starting off on the weekly chart here, we can see that sort of indecisiveness reflected in the price action as Bitcoin is still very much traveling within our weekly range over here, right? So the overall high time frame analysis that we have on the weekly chart still holds the same. Bitcoin will continue to chop within the range and along its relevant levels of support on the shorter time frame, which we'll go over, until we see a weekly candle close above the top of the range here. Now that exists at the candle close, the weekly close, for the all-time high or the prior all-time high at $104.5 thousand. Until we see that candle engulfed, we cannot expect, that the range has been broken. And when we do see it broken, we can expect then that Bitcoin enters a high time frame macro bullish territory and we push above $108,000 and $110,000 and back into macro price discovery rather than these sort of, deviation highs and then ultimate rejections back into the range. Now moving into the daily chart, what we saw earlier in the week prior to the FOMC data was actually quite promising on the high time frame charts because as I said, right, on the weekly chart, we're still in that range. So that doesn't really tell us all that much in terms of whether or not Bitcoin is gathering strength or buyers are building in strength as we progress within the range. But what we're actually seeing here on the daily chart is overall actually quite promising. So prior to, sort of developing that weekly range with this second high over here, Bitcoin was traveling within this smaller daily chart range here from $91,000 to $100,000, this sort of horizontal channel, right? And it was only very recently that we established support at the top of that at $100,000. Now, earlier on this week, what we saw was a dip right back into that range there to retest 97k support. And upon that level of support, we also tested the 200 EMA, that blue squiggly line down here, as well as the top of the Ichimoku cloud. And all those levels were ones that we bounced on, showing that on these high time frame charts, Bitcoin has displayed a strong amount of demand around that sort of 97 to 100k region. So it shows us that the buyers are sort of gaining strength and actively defending that level. And it tells us now that we continue to chop between 100k and 108, or more likely on, if we're looking at the weekly chart, 100k and 104.5, that weekly candle close resistance. And we're really looking to the consolidation within that sort of price action here to signal whether or not Bitcoin is going to see a shift in the narrative to either being bullish or bearish. So these are the two key levels to be watching out for on the high time frame charts. If we dive into the shorter time frame charts, namely a 4-hour chart over here, we can see what would signal a distinctive shift in the narrative for Bitcoin on the short time frame, namely a breakout of this sort of weekly downtrend over here, right? Or it's been a little bit more than a week, maybe a week and a half, but it ranges from obviously the all-time high at $109.5 thousand, and we have currently 3 points of confluence for that downtrend. Now, if we manage to break out of that downtrend, what we're essentially looking for is a break above the prior highs that exist within the downtrend, starting at 104.5 thousand, that weekly level of resistance. Above that, 105.7, 107.1, and then of course the range high being 109.5 thousand. Now, if we take a look at a kind of speculative structure that we have here on the 4-hour chart, if we see the range high here broken, and we also go on to validate this upper trend line with a third point of confluence, right? So we've got 2 at the bottom and 3 at the top. We need at least 3 on one of those sides to validate the sort of bullish channel structure here. But if Bitcoin ends up doing that, for example, we see a retest of the trend line and move down to retest the midline before the breakout, we can then use this channel as a way to set a measured move for the break, which in this case, the target is around 12.5 to 112.5 to $113,000, which would be the next bullish target in a break of the range high at 109. So going back to the short time frame, let's talk about the potential bearish case scenario, right? On the short time frame here, we can see that Bitcoin has developed a small uptrend right, that you can map out on the hourly chart. Now, if we go on to reject from our 4-hour downtrend and fall below our uptrend over here, we can expect the similar sort of nature of price action play out in the bearish case scenario. So first of all, resulting in a loss of support with confluence at the trend line at $102.7 thousand or $103,000. That is this level over here. And below that, of course, the prior low. Now that's going to mark a change of character and the shift of the narrative to bearish on the short time frame. That's at 103, and then we have a prior low at 100, and then the range low segment of price action ranging from $97,000 to $100,000. And that is when we start to look at the high time frame charts. For when we close above that close below that on a daily time frame, the high time frame charts start to look much more bearish, right, as we re-enter the macro range that Bitcoin had been in prior to the establishment of support at $100,000, this parallel channel over here. So overall, guys, with the future economic climate still very much sort of in the air and being relatively indecisive and inconclusive right now, the price action has continued to reflect that, right? We have short time frame strength developing, we have a small uptrend over here, and overall the high time frame charts are still showing us that the buyers are stepping in and defending key levels of support, but we haven't seen anything to really shift the narrative and push Bitcoin back into really macro bullish behavior. Alrighty guys, that is all the analysis that I have for you today. If you enjoyed the video or you learned something, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. If you're after even more content, be sure to check out my free Telegram for daily updates as well as crypto and economic news. And if you're interested in my VIP channel, you can get more details over here. VIP gives you exclusive access to my personal trading setups with exact entry points, targets, and stop losses. And if you are a trader, don't forget to sign up down below to BitUnext to get 15% off all of your trading fees. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye!